the world a little later than was expected, and I apologize for that. Sometimes in this profession, it's now the mediation side, things are taking longer until you can get people to come to an agreement. That's what mediation is about. So this is why I'm late, and this is because it's a live event. So live event means real, means like real time. And in this real time, that was the first opportunity for me to press the button, start the streaming. And it will be a recording for the people that scheduled that in their schedule to meet me at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm late, and you probably thought that I was abandoning you, but I am not. I'm connecting now. Anyway, this being said, and as I'm on a little bit of an housekeeping, I want to again invite you to subscribe on YouTube, please. You Change the World on YouTube, and you can find us also on www.andrepulitzer.com, and communicate with us, send us a message, send a register in our newsletter, and be part of us, be part of it, because it's a large family now, a larger family, not large enough, where we want to talk about everyday's challenge in individual and collective and community situations, where people look for clarity or for less ambiguity, let's put it this way, and leave this area of chaotic and unorganized season, if it's called a season. I prefer to call it that way because things are not permanent, especially when they are this way. And it's presented in the media and in all that is publicly shared as something called a crisis, a depression, or any kind of qualification that is a negative, as a negative connotation. And that's one way you can present it. But we have a choice in life to make things not illusional, but real in our own lives, to have a lens that is a positive glance on things, and make the choice of seeing that it's a challenge maybe, but that we can really handle it, and we can definitely be on top of it. And this is really what we always talk about, because this is what changed people's lives. This is where the breakthroughs are, the epiphanies, right? A coach's dream is to have a client, a coachee, having an epiphany. That's really the coach's dream. A mediator is to see people coming to a resolution, being a neutral entity, and that also happens. The way on the mediation side, when people come to an agreement, they're not reaching necessarily their top objectives, but they do not also feel that they compromise too much. They just walk away from each other in a dispute or in a divorce type of case, with the impression that everything has been explored, everything has been in fact listened to mutually, because it's uh, a volunteer phenomenon. People are coming to a mediator because they want to. And when two parties, like a couple that wants to divorce, wants a mediator, that's a good sign, because that's a sign that they want to listen to each other. They want to communicate, but they take a mediator in the middle because until now, the conversation, the communication didn't go very well, and they were about to come to court. And that's for every conflict that we mediate, because we can mediate a small claim, we can mediate a business issue, or an organizational issue. It's always the same. The mediator facilitates and enables people to communicate better. And that gives the structure to the communication, and especially a neutral entity that can be taken by each side to make it possible to come to a conclusion. So I didn't plan to talk about this, but as I was, thinking and processing my thought and speaking to you, I thought it was necessary to make that point clear. And yes, the chaos or the disorganization or whatever you want to call it, or the crisis or the recession or depression, a lot of this, even the cloud that we have now over the tri-state area, and the smoke from Canada, because there is a big fire, and this kind of very strange light we have around, and smell. I like that smell very much. So I even have in my office a special candle called fireplace, because this is having this beautiful smell of the wood, burned wood, or wood burning, when a candle burns and it has this beautiful fragrance. Well, now we have it all over the place. It's a little bit toxic. It looks like when you look at the forecast, but it is getting better, I think. And again, the same idea. We can take it as an analogy and say, well, there is smoke outside. The sun has a kind of screen in front of it, like an eclipse, and it is strange, very strange. We haven't seen that, I think, ever. And the smell comes along with it, a fragrance. If you take it as a fragrance like I do, then you can maybe enjoy it. And hopefully there is no person hurt in Canada, because I haven't seen the news. There must be a big fire to have miles and miles of smoke going south from Canada and covering such a wide area. But the whole city of Manhattan, I think, and everywhere there's this little that smoke and some kind of ashes falling on cars and things like that. It's amazing that it takes so many miles and has such an effect on the lives of people. But there is some toxicity to it, and that's why they recommend people to stay inside. All right, and now am I going to get to my subject? Yes. And the subject is today about expectations. And expectations is about in leadership, and maybe also expectations in your personal life, is again a choice that we make to expect things from someone. But there is a trend that I wanted to share, because again, that's the whole essence of this program, that live program, is to share what I see through the huge privilege, because I take it that way, of having clients that I'm coaching, that I mediate, and their experience and what they go through gives me also a sense of connecting dots between them and seeing that there is trends. Definitely, you will not believe me if I would tell you, but it is true that every single day, I'm not joking you, there is a theme that comes up, meaning one client brings a subject to another client that brings maybe something similar, and they did not discuss it between themselves because they don't know each other. And there is some kind of a miracle here that every day, at least if I have 5 or 6 clients in a day, sometimes more, there will be at least 3 that will bring up a common topic that will be giving me a sense that there is a trend. There is something in the air that tells me that this is something that happens in corporate America or corporate world, because they sometimes also overseas. So what do I say here? Well, one topic comes back a lot these days, and it's a need from the coachees to hear from me, not as a recommendation, but to get the coaching about getting comfortable, to be independent, autonomous, because it's expected of you. It's an unspoken expectations across the board, especially in high-tech companies, that your supervisor, your boss, expects you not to raise your hand and not to ask permission. And even if you go higher in the ladder of hierarchy, if it's a pyramidal organization, but even in a matrix organization, amazingly, there's an expectation that you make your own decisions, that you take your own initiatives, that you cut again those umbilical cords that I bring back always in this conversation here, that we need to be more entrepreneurial in our way of thinking, in our mindset, and be confident with ourselves that we can take the initiative, that we can own the project, that we own the accountability, because we're responsible for what we do. And my boss and boss's boss and all of these people above me are just here to provide me any support I need, but they do not need to give me a green light, because they trust me that I will make the right decision. Do you hear me? Do you hear that? Do you hear this is kind of a breakthrough for so many of you, that yes, you can move forward and stop waiting for a permission for what you need to do? How many people are just stuck and are idle, waiting for an answer, waiting for someone to say or respond to an email? This is a very common thing, that you don't get a response to your email. Why? Because I think the person wants to tell you, get this done. Don't bother me. Do it by yourself. Do it. Move forward. Don't ask me permission. And just come back to me with a result, with things done. Now, you need money? Oh, you need a budget? Oh, you need me to ask above me that I need to get funding for your problem here or for your idea? Well, if you don't get an answer, it's a no to me about me giving you that resource because I don't have it or I don't want to ask for it or I know I can't ask for it. And then you still want this project to work, you might find maybe the funding or the sponsor to support your project. Just that example, very classic example. You need money. That's a very big, typical example for making something happen. And the project can happen only with funding. Well, if it's expected of you to bring back up that project, it was never told, though, when they hired you for that position of yours, that the money would be given to you for this particular expectation. And the expectation, again, non spoken, because people do not communicate very well or very much, but it's expected of you. If it resonates, please write the message now in the chat and say, yeah, I see what you mean, Andre, because this is what really happens most of the time. And I'm not guessing, but when I hear the story from the coachee, when they share with me the situation in which they are, it is about exactly this very point. They're waiting for a green light. They're waiting for someone to organize their schedule. If it's in the medical field, I just recall one session today about that very point. A nurse practitioner who is on her own doing things and being completely overwhelmed because someone at planning and scheduling does not take into account that she's one person to do many, many things. And she would be given 12 or 15 patients a day. This is totally, unbelievably and undoable because it's not like it's not doable to get 12 or 15 patients a day when you're a nurse practitioner in an oncology department with serious cases when you need to deeply take care of the patients and when you have to take more than 15 minutes a patient to get through the case. So I am just saying, I tell this client of mine who is a nurse practitioner, how about you doing something about the schedule and not wait on this person or this planner to do something for you and stop bearing something that is not functioning. So when something doesn't function, right, and it's caused by a lack of people involved or a lack of leadership or a lack of an operational resource, that you find that resource by yourself, you find that solution by yourself, and make your life much easier that way, and stop waiting on some others to do it for you. So that's an entrepreneurial mindset. That's a responsibility you take on you. That's an ownership you take on the matter that you're in charge of. And I know I don't want to be prescriptive. I don't want to be an evangelist here to convince people about something. I'm just saying what's going on out there and how many people are shy, have a lack of assertiveness to get things done. And that most of the time, there is an expectation from above you that you deal with that situation by yourself. Try it. Try it. Of course, I'm not inviting people to go beyond their boss or their policy and make decisions they're not supposed to make by themselves. I'm not saying that you are completely free to make any decision you want, but try to see if the things you're waiting on, especially things where you wait for a green light, for an approval, would not in fact be possibly done without asking for this approval, for this endorsement, or for this signature, and that you can do it by yourself. That it's not only permissible, but it's expected of you, but it's not spoken to you. Because the truth is like this, right? Communication is a big crisis, much more than any crisis they talk about out there in the media, in the radio or television. The big crisis is people communicate in a very bad way. There is a huge problem in communication. And I think the fault has to be really blamed on COVID, on isolation, confinement, and all the things that happen over the years where we lose and lose more and more our connection to ourselves and connections with other people. This is a problem. This is a huge problem. And if you're parents and raise children, how can you raise your children so that they are good communicators? They are open to the world and to other people, and they are interested in other people and care for other people. Well, technology, AI, artificial intelligence, bots, and all of this are definitely screens or blockages to human relationships. And you see, I gave myself a title on LinkedIn that is pretty unique because I was looking for a unique title. And you see, I didn't need anyone to give me the title. I took it by myself and called myself Chief Humanization Officer. Why? Today, first time I'm going to give an explanation for that word. Why did it come to my mind? Because I saw that it's the thing that is losing substance. The humanization is what's losing substance. It's probably what the 21st century is about. And I know that some people, even the guy who invented artificial intelligence, the ChatGPT, Sam Altman, is going around the world to not only that he invented and is a genius for ChatGPT to exist, but at the same time he realizes how he got scared that, my gosh, if it goes too far, if it falls in the wrong hands, da 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 da, I have to go around and communicate to the world that they need to be careful and put a policy and structure this whole artificial intelligence that is regulated, that it can be controlled and always under control, so that it doesn't go in the wrong hands or go beyond the control of a human being. Like, I remember one of the television series, I'm never watching one, but there was a movie, I don't remember now the title, but you probably relate to it, when the inventor of an AI or a robot, in fact, becomes overwhelmed by the robot itself and becomes controlled by the robots and the world also. He loses even the location where the robot is. It's amazing, because all those movies and scripts that people invented and imagined are coming to reality today. So that's a good problem to think about when you invent ChatGPT, and then after the fact, you go around and you're kind of preaching the whole world that you have to be careful about it. This is the world we live in. Now, we're going back to the topic again of communication, of ownership of your responsibility, of accountability, and of expectations from everybody that you work for, even the organization, that maybe you should take more responsibilities than you think you can take. And don't ask permission for everything that you need when you need something, because you get stuck, you're waiting, you're dependent on people, organization. There's all kind of reasons why someone does not come back to you with an answer or with a permission. There's sometimes politics going on. There's sometimes an agenda going on, or something like in the culture of the company going on. If there is silos, like we call this a fragmented culture, where nobody really shares or collaborate. There is large organizations where stakeholders do not communicate with each other and keep everything against the chest and for themselves. In this kind of world, where it's so fragmented, you're not going to wait for another department to give you permission for something. That's an ideal kind of world where, yes, probably, and you can check it out. Of course, you need to investigate that a little bit more for yourself, not again to violate or go too far into this independence of yours. But I'm saying, within the scope of your job, of what's expected of you, you know very well what you can own and don't and can't. So please, this is the perspective I try to share with you today. If it's an eye-opener, that will make my life and my day, because this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm sharing with you this time in a live event, because really having those clients every day, hearing their needs and what they are looking for, having clear objectives, or sometimes I need to coach them to have clarity in their objectives of what they want to develop for themselves, in their leadership, in their lives, the quality of their lives, the quality of their lives, the quality of life that we lost so much because of this pandemic and what politics did about it also, imposing on us rules and confinements that in many cases were not necessary. But of course, we can also understand that it was the first time and even governments didn't know what to do. There was a real panic, or some others, like vultures, took advantage of it to do politics with it and try to pull everything to their political agenda. This is what happens. And this is, the more we dependent on all of this, we let governments, we let things governing our lives, and the less happy we can be, because we are totally dependent. So there is truly, between the lines, and a strong purpose for a coach. It is to make people's lives easier and happier. I really think this is what drives my day the most, is that when I hear someone sharing a challenge, I hear there is an opportunity for that person to feel better and to improve their lives. And this is why I take a stake in that passionately. And I'm not pretending I have a better life or more quality in mine, but when I go through their stories, I go also through mine. It's an exercise, that is a natural one. And when I reflect on all the situations I went through in the day, I heard about or I participated in, I realize, wow, this comes back very often. People are so dependent on so many things. And if they would make the decision for themselves to take another angle about it and see where they can take an initiative, which is really my conclusion now. We're going to have another 2 minutes here. We started around 15 minutes later than expected. But I want to close on this idea, because that's the core of what I wanted to convey to you today. That freedom that you have and that you don't know you have is the one you need to assess, research, and validate. And if you need validation from someone else, please get validation from someone else. Ask the question, because your boss will never tell you. It's the lack of communication that people have today. They don't tell you clearly what they want from you. The expectations are not clear, even if it's written black on white, like some companies do, and even change their criteria of evaluating people's performance by setting up expectations that each manager needs to formulate clearly and put into a system. And then when comes the time of reviewing the employee, they're going to use those metrics that are expectations metrics versus previous metrics that were other things, pure performance metrics or quantitative, qualitative. Here, we talk about expectations. They're not formulated well enough and in enough details to tell you exactly what they're about. So this is how I would like to conclude. I leave this with you and food for thought. Explore in your day-to-day. Make an inventory of your dependencies in your private life, personal life, and professional life, and see what you can own and take back under your own governance and autonomy. See for yourself if you can build an entrepreneurial mindset along with a growth mindset and be successful in what you do, because you own it more and you make yourself more accountable. And in fact, you make your supervisors, your bosses, the owners of your companies, the stakeholders, much happier to have you as an asset to the team rather than a dependency to the team or a dependency to the organization. You become a contributor individually or as a leader with a team, with direct reports and all of that. At every single level, the expectation from you, or in the expectations that people have of you, there is a good dosage of that you need to take initiatives and stop asking permission. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week. I'll be on time, hopefully, and I apologize for my delay today, and really invite you to join us. We'll have guests coming up in the next few weeks. Subscribe to YouTube. Be always the best of yourself, and see you next week. Thank you.